Good evening. My name is Alex, and I'll be your host tonight as we deep dive into some of the world's greatest mysteries. You're listening to Mysteries After Midnight.
Discovery, go and throttle up.
Tonight we'll be continuing our discussion of the boomerang light phenomenon with the Hudson Valley Lights event. The year is 1982. A few minutes before midnight on New Year's Eve, a retired New York City police officer stepped outside of his home to clean up some broken glass. He was about to bend over when bright lights from above a nearby tree line caught his attention. As he watched, a large V-shaped craft about the size of a football field came into view. It moved slowly and silently at only about 100 feet in the air. It had red, blue, and green lights along its edge, with a bright white light beaming down from its center. The beam of light illuminated the former officer's yard, and his son joined him outside as they proceeded to follow the craft until it flew out of view. The following year, a similar low-hovering aircraft was witnessed by Kevin Soravia, an officer of the Yorktown Police Department. He stood watching it for a few minutes before the craft banked, made a 45-degree turn as if on a wheel, then quickly sped off towards the horizon. In an effort to rationalize what he had just witnessed, he put a call in to Stewart Air Force Base in Newburgh.
Hey, I've just seen a pretty massive aircraft flying through here. You got any C-5 transport planes in the air tonight?
No, sir. According to my records, we have no C-5s in that area.
During this time, the Yorktown Police Department began receiving the first of dozens of calls from witnesses. Shortly after the officer lost sight of the craft, it made a reappearance, hovering over a long stretch of New York's Taconic Parkway. Traffic came to a screeching halt, backing up for miles, as dozens of people stopped to watch the bizarre phenomenon. Witnesses claimed the craft resembled a giant floating city. Descriptions of this craft resembled the one witnessed in 1982. It carried an unsettling silence, maintained a creeping slowness no more than 3 to 5 miles per hour, with a brilliant white light beaming down from its center. Bill Healy, the chief meteorologist for the National Weather Corporation, familiar with all types of aircraft, said he could not identify the craft he saw that night. He said it was, quote,
as large as an aircraft carrier,
end quote. As Healy was driving south on the Taconic Parkway, the lights appeared on the horizon near the Westchester County Airport. He said, quote,
they weren't moving very fast, but they were extremely bright and aroused my curiosity. I went down a hill and up to the crest of the next, and at that point I was beginning to become concerned as to what it could be. I was curious enough to pull my car off the road. I got out and took another look at this thing. I had been around planes for the past 20 years, and at that point I realized that this thing did not have the appearance of any known object or anything similar to an airplane or a group of airplanes that I'd ever seen. I began to study this series of 6 or 7 lights coming at me. The appearance of the lights was like a large check mark, or a V with one end of the V clipped off. As the object approached, there was no sound. I estimate the initial altitude to be under 2,000 feet. As it approached, it seemed to be lowering to approximately 1,000 feet. Soon it was at a 45-degree angle to me, away from the ground and away from the moon, which was full. The object slowed down, not to a stop, but nearly to a crawl, still moving. All the lights were changing color at a different time frame from the other lights, as if it had the rotating prism within the lights. No aircraft I've ever seen has a rotating prism for a light source. At this point, all the lights on the horizontal axis ceased to exist, the way you would see the incandescency of a light shrink to 0 lumens as it went out, in perhaps 1/5 of a second. After not hearing a sound, and seeing absolutely nothing in the sky except stars, I was amazed to find not even a silhouette of an object. That had me not exactly frightened, but on the verge. I'm searching the heavens all around me, up and down and to the side, for 30 or 40 seconds, and I'm looking up when all of a sudden, flash! The entire string of lights came on. I looked back at my VW, beginning to become a little frightened. I was beginning to feel that if something happened to me out here, who would even know or wonder why I had disappeared? However, I continued to stare at it. It was about 1,000 feet above me, and it had subtended an arc in the sky that led me to believe that perhaps I was looking at a series of lights about a quarter of a mile long. The object continued to hover stationary for a half a dozen seconds and then slowly began to drift northward parallel to the parkway. Then a strange thing happened. All the lights seemed to be pointing right at me, or focused on me, and the coloration turned to a slimy green, a computer green. It slowly drifted off across the horizon. About this time, 2 young men came running up to me in hysterical voices asking me if I had a camera. I had to calm them down. They said they'd been chasing the object through Yorktown and had never seen anything like it in their lives.
End quote. On March 24, 1983, a witness under the pseudonym of John Wright had a fairly close encounter with the craft. He said, quote,
I was amazed at the size of this thing. It was over 400 feet from tip to tip. I was so close I could almost see inside it. As I watched this thing, the 2 kids with me were crying hysterically.
End quote. Dennis Fleming, president of International Information Services Limited, a data processing company in Greenwich, Connecticut, saw the object twice while driving north along the parkway, as well as twice from his home in Croton Manor. With a background in aviation and air traffic control systems, Fleming stated, quote,
I noticed 4 lights on the horizon and slowed down to get a better look. The car in front of me was weaving in and out of the lanes and slowing down and speeding up. He looked like he was looking at the lights. He pulled over, and I pulled over and stopped. My first reaction was that this thing was very big. There was no sound. Any aircraft that large should have been heard, no matter how noisy the Taconic was at the time.
End quote. As he continued driving, he saw the object again over a nearby mountain. He said, quote,
I stopped and got out. It was very quiet there, and this time I heard the object. It sounded like a very small single-engine aircraft. It was very faint, however, at a very moderate pitch. It was almost like the puttering sound on a motorboat engine.
End quote. Upon arriving home, he grabbed his children and a telescope, where they continued to watch the object until it faded into the distance towards Peekskill. He did note that even with the telescope, quote,
we still could not see any structure at all.
End quote. He tried to rationalize what he had witnessed, but couldn't. The following day, he read in the paper that many other people witnessed the same thing he had, validating his experience. He said, quote,
I was especially interested when other people described the same things that I did.
End quote. People seemed to notice that the object appeared to be taking an interest in the towns surrounding the Taconic Parkway, circling them briefly before continuing northward. David Scarpino, a hospital accountant residing in Ossining, New York, witnessed the bizarre craft around 8:15 p.m. as he was walking his dog around Ossining Reservoir. He caught a glimpse of some lights over his shoulder and quickly turned around, where he was met with the sight of 12 bright lights in a boomerang formation hovering over a nearby tree. It appeared similar in size to a 747 jetliner. He claimed that his dog didn't even notice the object. He said, quote,
As I watched, the lights started to turn very slowly, as if on a wheel. The object turned 180 degrees in a tight circle. I couldn't make out any structure, but from the way the lights moved, I was certain this was one solid object.
End quote. He also noted that the object made no sound. After the craft completed its rotation, it slowly headed south across the reservoir. The craft stopped once again, and all of its lights went out, with the exception of a blue light and a green light. A few moments later, those lights also blinked out, and that was the last Scarpino saw of the object. At the same time as the Taconic Parkway sightings, just 15 miles north, residents of the Putnam County area were also witnessing a similar object. It was noted that this object appeared to be smaller in size than the one traveling over the Taconic. At 8:30 p.m., James Holtzman, his wife Ruth, and their 2 sons noticed a series of white, blue, green, and red lights hovering about 300 feet above them as they were returning to their home in Kent on Route 301. Holtzman stopped and exited his vehicle. He observed that it made no sound and, quote,
just hung there motionless in the sky. It was like seeing a ghost.
End quote. At the same time, a car approaching from the opposite direction stopped nearly directly beneath the craft. The driver also exited his vehicle and looked up at the UFO. As he did so, the lights began flashing in a rapid sequence up and down the supposed wings, to which the man quickly returned to his car, turned around, and sped off in the direction he had come. The object then adjusted its course in the direction of Holtzman's vehicle. The family, frightened, pleaded with James to get back into the car to leave. He quickly did so and hit the gas. As they passed beneath the object, the car was briefly bathed in a blinding white light, which had apparently caused their youngest son's skin to tingle. As noted by witnesses, this craft seemed to take the same interest in lakes and ponds as the first craft. As it hovered over a large pond, it was seen deploying some kind of searchlight system. The light scanned over the water, and then the craft left. On August 25, 1984, the New York Times published an article claiming the UFO to be nothing more than a well-executed hoax, allegedly pulled off by 5 to 6 pilots flying in tight formation. One officer claimed to have followed the V-shaped lights all the way to Stormville Airport, where he witnessed a group of small, single-engine planes flying in close formation with their undersides painted black. The officer said the planes were rigged with bright lights of alternating colors. On a separate occasion, a pilot in the area claimed to have followed the strange lights to the parking area of Skyacres Airport. Upon exiting his vehicle, he noted that he could hear the plane's engines, as well as the voices of the pilots shouting back and forth to one another. Looking up, he saw a large group of ultralights in tight formation, a single light hanging from each. He claimed that this, quote, was the real UFO, end quote. However, another pilot, with thousands of flight hours and formation experience in high-performance jets, called the hoax explanation pure garbage. Having also witnessed the UFO, he stated that there was no possible way ultralight pilots would be able to maintain their position relative to each other in the way he observed, nor remain in the sky at such slow speeds. Not to mention, a group of ultralights would most likely sound like a sea of lawnmowers, opposed to the deafening silence he reported accompanying the craft. For context, I have included a sound bit of an ultralight single-propeller airplane taking off. Most of the witnesses on the Taconic Parkway reported no sound accompanying the aircraft, meaning they were not mistaking ultralight planes for a UFO. Additionally, the metallic structure of the aircraft was clearly visible to some of the witnesses. This pilot, and thousands of other New York residents, adamantly believed this to be a genuine UFO. Another witness reported seeing a singular, rigid aircraft moving low and slow above him. A week later, he witnessed the supposed craft again. However, this time it was clearly multiple aircraft trying to move in unison, mimicking the appearance of the originally reported UFO. This witness said, quote,
I saw something strange in the sky, but it wasn't the same thing I saw a week before.
End quote. Most people that witnessed both events agreed that their first sighting was of a genuine craft, while the second sighting was undoubtedly a group of pilots attempting to pull a prank. I, of course, believe their stunt was more than just a prank for laughs. In fact, throughout April, May, and June of 1983, reports from a large number of residents came flooding in, all about this group of mystery planes that were buzzing around their homes. Many people believed these planes were being used in a deliberate attempt to discredit the original UFO sightings, to confuse the issue and damage the credibility of the reports. The pilots weren't identified in any of my research, so who's to say that these people weren't Air Force personnel? Perhaps they worked for the government and were tasked with trying to hoax a UFO to cover up a very real event, in an attempt to create doubt among the witnesses. We may never know their true intentions. Police departments in Westchester County decided to adopt the plane formation explanation in an attempt to calm the public. The appearance of the mystery planes certainly aided in making that explanation more believable. The media was satisfied with this theory, and it became widely accepted in most communities. But, truthfully, the police had no idea what really happened, and no investigations by state or local authorities ever uncovered any flyers that could confirm the plane theory. Another popularly accepted theory is that the UFO witnesses reported didn't actually have extraterrestrial origins, but instead was a top-secret military aircraft. Conspiracy theories about our government funding top-secret air and spacecraft production and testing have plagued the country for years. After all, strange crafts originating from Earth is much easier to believe than aliens visiting our planet. To their credit, the Air Force does seem to enjoy making unconventional-looking aircrafts, like the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, TR-3A Black Manta spy plane, and the F-117 Nighthawk stealth attack aircraft, just to name a few. These planes do seem to follow the guidelines of Strange Flying Triangle, and are just strange enough to be mistaken for UFOs by people that have never seen one before. That fact would hint at the possibility of the Air Force deciding to test out a new top-secret aircraft. However, testing it in an area where it could be witnessed by thousands of people doesn't seem very top-secret of them. Considering Area 51 is locked down so tight that stepping a toe beyond the property line would result in a funeral for those phalanges, I find it hard to believe that the Air Force would parade a test plane over the Taconic. Of course, I would be remiss if I failed to mention the potential flare explanation. Flares seem to be the last-ditch effort skeptics resort to in an attempt to remain as close-minded to the possibilities of extraterrestrials as possible. I mention it here merely to cover the bases of potential explanations, even though I find flares to be an even less likely explanation in this case than I did for the Phoenix Lights event in 1997, and since I went into extensive detail and analysis of that theory in the Phoenix Lights episode, I feel no reason to do so here. In fact, this event resulted in over 5,000 witness reports from the Hudson Valley area, and very few of those people would agree that flares could be a realistic explanation for what they saw. The dates and sighting locations in chronological order are as follows. 1982, December 31st, Kent, Carmel, Lake Carmel, Putnam County. 1983, February 26th, Brewster, Lake Carmel, Putnam County. Danbury, Fairfield County. March 17th, Brewster, Lake Carmel, Putnam County. Danbury, New Fairfield, Fairfield County. March 24th, all of central and northern Westchester County, most of Putnam County and Danbury. March 26th, Mahopac, Putnam County. March 30th, Shrub Oak, Westchester County, Putnam Valley, Putnam County. March 31st, Sandy Hook, Newtown, Fairfield County. April 3rd, Northern Westchester County, Southern Putnam County. April 12th, Northern Westchester County, Southern Putnam County. April 15th, Northern Westchester County, Southern Putnam County. April 21st, Northern Westchester County, Southern Putnam County. August 21st, Bridgeport, Connecticut. October 28th, Croton Falls, Mahopac, Putnam County. 1984, March 21st, Woodbury, Orange County. March 25th, Central Westchester County, Rockland County, Putnam County. April 25th, Dutchess County. May 31st, Central and Northern Westchester County, Putnam County. June 11th, Westchester County. June 13th, Westchester County. June 14th, most of Westchester County. June 22nd, Montrose, Westchester County. June 24th, Katona, Westchester County. June 25th, Danbury, Fairfield County. July 12th, Rockland County, Northern Westchester County, most of Putnam County, Dutchess County, Northwestern Fairfield County. July 19th, Danbury, Fairfield County. July 24th, Northern Westchester County, all of Putnam County, Northwestern Fairfield County. August 7th, Ossining, Westchester County. August 13th, Peekskill, Westchester County. August 17th, Danbury, Fairfield County. August 20th, Kingston, New York. August 25th, Kingston, New York. August 26th, Danbury, Fairfield County. October 30th, Central Westchester County, Northeastern Putnam County. 1985. March 21st, Eastern Putnam County, Central, Northwestern, Southeastern Fairfield County, Western New Haven County. November 21st, Northwestern Westchester County, Southwestern Fairfield County, Southern Long Island, New York, Northern New Jersey. 1986. January 6th, Greater Hartford Area, Connecticut. June 21st, Central Westchester County. July 10th, Southwestern Westchester County, Queens, and South Central Long Island, New York. When it comes to UFO sightings, there are a few different ways they're classified: daylight disk, nocturnal light, radar visual, and close encounters. Daylight disk is a daytime sighting of an unidentified object. Conversely, nocturnal light is a sighting that happens at night, which is the most common type of UFO sighting. The majority of the reports from the Hudson Valley around 1983 fall under this category, with only 2 unconfirmed reports from witnesses claiming to see a large gray metallic object during the day. Radar visual is the most valuable classification as it details crafts that are able to be tracked on radar, proving it to be a legitimate physical object. Close encounters are exactly as it sounds and are where most craft descriptions are derived from. A term popularized by Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind is an actual UFO classification consisting of, in addition to the third kind, a first kind, and a second kind of witness encounter. Close encounters of the first kind encompass sightings of objects within 500 feet of the observer. A close encounter of the second kind results in physical evidence, such as broken tree limbs, oily residue, or baked earth. Close encounters of the third kind, as I'm sure you've pieced together by now, are encounters with the occupants of the UFO in one fashion or another, whether it be a witnessed physical encounter or dreams potentially indicating a repressed memory or a telepathic link to the extraterrestrial. By extension, some UFO researchers consider abductions to fall under close encounters of the fourth kind, but many simply refer to them as abductions. The Phoenix Lights event of 1997 consisted predominantly of close encounters of the first kind. In fact, I found no indication of any other such close encounter occurring. However, the Hudson Valley Lights event of 1983, while somehow managing to completely skip over leaving physical evidence behind, managed to leave in its wake potential close encounters of the third or fourth kind. John Wright, one of the witnesses I mentioned earlier, as well as the 2 teenagers accompanying him during the March 24th sighting, may have had one of these such encounters. A short time after the encounter, John Wright began having recurring dreams in which he found himself and the 2 teenagers inside the UFO, along with 5 other strange beings. In sharing his report, Wright consented to be hypnotized and shared the following story of what happened after witnessing the UFO under hypnosis. Quote,
"When I got home, I felt a little dazed. I went to bed early and had this strange dream. In the dream, the same thing happened, but this time the kids and I were pulling up into the UFO. One minute I was looking up at it, and the next minute we were inside, and there were these guys. There were about 5 of them, and they were working around some kind of strange control panel. They were about 5 foot 4 inches tall, and had big heads and small mouths with little ears. They had on black suits with the buttons up and down the front. One guy came up to me and said, 'Don't worry, we won't hurt you.' They told me it was some kind of test and that they were doing some kind of study of the people in the area. They said their mission to our planet was a peaceful, scientific one. The inside of the ship looked like mass computers, with all different color lights flashing all over the place. It hurt my eyes to look at them. They moved me and sat me in some type of chair and did something to me with different machines up and down my body. The kids were also in the room with me, also sitting in chairs, and it looked like others were doing to them what this one guy was doing to me. They kept telling me that they would not harm me or the kids, when all of a sudden, boom! I'm back in the Jeep with the kids, and the kids are crying, and they want to get out of there, and the object is drifting slowly away to the north."
End quote. While Wright tried to insist it was all an elaborate dream, 16-year-old Jack and his 13-year-old sister Ellen, who were with Wright at the time of the sighting, shared that they also had dreams about the UFO afterwards. In fact, nearly every detail about the encounter was identical to what John described, right down to the descriptions of the creatures inside the craft. Monique O'Driscoll and her teenage daughter were among the first to report sighting the UFO. The original sighting occurred on February 26th of 1983, and less than 2 months later, she witnessed the craft again. While walking her dog near Lake Carmel, New York, she saw the mysterious lights. She watched the lights briefly before they disappeared. Upon returning home, she found that it was nearly an hour later than she thought it was. Bud Hopkins, an expert on cases of missing time, was given consent to hypnotize Monique in an attempt to get to the bottom of what happened that night. What she said under hypnosis is as follows, quote,
I'd gone to bed that evening, and then had gotten up to open a window. As I did, I saw the lights in the sky, and got my camera. When I tried to take a picture, the lights were obscured by tree branches swaying in the wind. I put on shoes and a jogging outfit and went outside, only to have the object disappear just as I started to take a picture. Frustrated, I returned to my bedroom. I couldn't sleep and went to the window again. After a few minutes, a single light appeared in the sky in the area where I'd seen the group of lights earlier. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I was staring at it. It's like I want to take my eyes away from it, and it's pulling me back. And then, as I'm looking at it, it's like these electrical things are shooting all around it. It makes my eyes squint. I close the curtain because I feel uncomfortable. Maybe I was just imagining things and getting carried away. I tried to go back to sleep, but couldn't. So I get up and put my socks and boots on, my leather jacket and gloves. I get the dog from my daughter's room. In the driveway, I see the lights still there. I walk down to the lake to get closer to it. I feel very tired. I'm losing sight. I feel like I'm nowhere. I just feel like I'm not even on my road. Where's my dog? I feel weak. I don't feel my legs. I feel very strange. I feel like my body's not even around me. I don't see anything. I don't see the trees. I don't see the lake. What's happening? All I feel is the throbbing of my heart. I feel pressure on my chest, like something sitting on my chest. It's like the size of a cup pushing down on my chest. It's heavy. I feel almost like a little vibration. It hurts a little bit. I feel like my body's shaking.
End quote. Hopkins spoke to her soothingly in an attempt to calm her. After a few minutes, she felt normal again, and the session continued. He asked her if she was standing or sitting, to which she replied that she was lying down, but couldn't see anything, that her eyes were closed, and she didn't want to open them. After a few moments, he was able to convince her to look. The following is a dramatization of the conversation between Hopkins and Monique.
Now what do you see?
I didn't open my eyes.
What is it that you are afraid of? Afraid that you will see?
These things,
What are these things?
like people.
What do they look like?
Bald, big heads.
Did they speak to you?
No.
Are they involved with the pressure on your chest?
They're walking around. They're gray, skinny fingers. They're touching panels, like discs, knobs.
Can you see what's causing the pressure on your chest?
A silver thing. It's flat, round. It looks flat on the bottom, but it's long. It's tall, I should say, and it's connected to something else, like a moving arm type thing. The room's round. There's panels all over the place.
How many people are there?
There are 4. One's on my left. The other 3 are moving down. I can see them by my feet. They're not close to me, only one. The other ones are at panels.
And how are you feeling now?
I'm not afraid of them. Right now I feel restful. They took that thing off. I don't see anything now.
Have you ever seen these people before?
No.
Are they still in the same place?
I don't know where I am now. I can see the lake. I call my dog. She was by the water. I start walking back to the house. I'm cold. I don't feel right. I'm so tired. I feel confused.
The session ended shortly after that. Another witness, Robert Tamerson, who had a close encounter at Candlewood Lake near Danbury, had a similar account to Monique. He too was missing time and reported strange dreams of being taken aboard the UFO after the event. Robert reported strange creatures placing him on a table and moving some kind of device up and down his chest. While it is easy to wash these accounts away under the assumption that they're just dreams fueled by mass UFO hysteria, the fact that these people were able to share similar observations to one another shouldn't be ignored. And while reports of this magnitude were incredibly rare with this event, quite a few witnesses reported that they felt a sort of sentience from the aircraft. Some people believed that the UFO could read their thoughts, or that it was responding to their actions. It was as if the craft, or whatever was controlling it, was trying to communicate with them, to convey a message of some kind. Quite a few of these people felt a strong compulsion to find out more about the strange object they saw, to the point that several libraries in the Putnam, Westchester, and Danbury area had all of their books on UFOs checked out, with a substantially long waiting list for them. Cindy Tillison was one such witness that reported the craft responding to her actions. She was alone with her dog in her Sandy Hook, Connecticut home when around 8:30 p.m. on March 31st, her dog began barking incessantly. All of the blinds were closed and the lights were off, with the exception of the light emanating from her television set. After about 3 minutes of barking, Cindy decided to check out whatever was agitating her dog. Heading towards the kitchen, she noticed that her Great Dane was standing rigidly in front of the sliding glass door, staring into the woods. She immediately saw what her dog was barking at. A large, V-shaped object glowing an incredibly bright auburn color. She said, quote, "I just kept observing it, and I flicked on the outdoor floodlights for some reason. When I flicked on the floodlights, it moved. It turned towards the left. I shut the lights off, and it shifted back. I put the lights on again, and this time it shifted to the right. Then I decided I was going to leave the lights off altogether. I was getting nervous. I actually felt like this object was watching me. I was very intimidated by it. I walked away from the window quite a few times, thinking that when I went back it would be gone. It just stayed the entire time." End quote. The 20-minute ordeal left Tillison fearful and visibly shaken in her interview about the encounter 2 weeks later. She said that she made sure all of the lights in her house were off because she felt the need to hide herself from the UFO. The craft beamed a wide white light from its center, as if looking for something. Tillison was so frightened she called her brother-in-law to have him come over, but the object vanished just after she hung up the phone. She said, quote, "I didn't see it go up. I didn't see it go down. It just disappeared, like nothing was ever there." End quote. She claimed that her dog was so frightened that he refused to go outside the next day. Tillison was one of several that had experiences that left them shaken for weeks afterward. Thousands of people witnessed this strange object, some with much more intense and far more terrifying experiences than others. It would be impossible to detail all of the eyewitness accounts as much as I would love to give them all the attention they deserve. American astronomer and famed ufologist Dr. J. Allen Hynek, along with Philip J. Imbrogno and Bob Pratt, authors of the book Night Siege, conducted a study while investigating the Hudson Valley Lights in an attempt to compile the information into easily discernible statistics. Each study group was separated by date of major sightings, so for simplicity, I will run through the first study to explain how the information was measured. I will be reading the charts as they were originally written. Percentages given represent witness reports. Study 1, March 17, 1983. Number 1, UFO shape or light pattern seen. Boomerang, 43%. V-shape, 57%. Number 2, estimated size of the object, less than 100 feet across, 36%. 100 to 300 feet, 57%. More than 300 feet, 7%. Number 3, color of lights. Green, 7%. White, 7%. Red, white, blue, and green, 79%. Red and green, 7%. Number 4, number of lights. 4, 14%. 6, 7%. 8, 21%. 10 or more, 58%. It should be noted that some witnesses reported more than 20 lights adorning the craft. Number 5, sound. Humming, 50%. Engine-like, 7%. No sound, 43%. Number 6, structure. No structure seen, 30%. Not sure, 10%. Dark, metallic, 60%. Number 7, how the object moved. Very slowly, 71%. Slowly, then very fast, 29%. Number 8, did the object hover? Yes, 78%. No, 22%. Number 9, duration of the sighting. 2 minutes, 14%. 5 minutes, 36%. 10 minutes, 7%. More than 10 minutes, 43%. Number 10, how the witness lost sight of the object. Just moved away, 93%. Simply vanished, 7%. The final part of the study was determining the percentages of witness reports from specific times and locations. 90% of witnesses reported seeing the craft between 8:30 and 9 p.m. in the areas of Brewster, Carmel, and Lake Carmel, New York. 10% reported seeing it between 9 and 10 p.m. in the areas of Danbury and New Fairfield, Connecticut. The study was completed 4 times for 4 separate dates, and the data received, apart from the locations of the sightings, followed a relatively similar trend, with fairly marginal percentage differences. Boomerang and V-shaped UFOs have been witnessed all over the country since 1951. In 1980, a Canadian resident witnessed a boomerang-shaped craft hovering in the sky over town. It traveled towards the mountains before making a 90-degree turn upwards and shooting up into the sky and disappearing. Between the years of 1989 and 2017, researchers compiled 1,101 separate UFO sightings in Canada of varying craft shape. But of course, sightings of unidentified aircrafts aren't just limited to North America. Countries all over the world have reports of strange flying objects, some of which also had reports of similar boomerang or V-shaped objects as claimed to have been witnessed in the Hudson Valley and in Phoenix, Arizona. On June 14, 2018, a boomerang-shaped UFO was spotted over France in broad daylight. While many tried to discredit it as a military craft or high-altitude drone, it remains an unsolved mystery. We may never know what these objects really are or where they come from. And while it may feel safe to discredit them, to ignore the possibility of extraterrestrial life, avoiding credible witnesses and thousands of eyewitness reports would be doing yourself a disservice in the face of potential facts. I can't say for certain what these things are, or if they are of extraterrestrial origin, what extraterrestrials are piloting them. There is an uncanny resemblance between the Hudson Valley Lights event and the Phoenix Lights event, despite the minor differences in craft descriptions reported by witnesses. With that information, would it be safe to assume that these UFOs had the same origin? Is it possible that these are the telltale ship structures of the Greys? Perhaps it's simply a coincidence and these events aren't connected at all. Regardless of what the circumstances of these visits are, the one thing many people believe for certain is that they've seen something that doesn't belong here. That concludes part 2 of the Boomerang Lights story. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions or would like to share your own personal paranormal experiences, email us at mysteries.am@gmail.com. You might just hear your story on the show. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at MysteriesAM and Instagram at mysteries_after_midnight to stay updated on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If there is a specific mystery you would like to hear on the show, tweet or DM us about it, and we may just make it an episode. I would like to extend a special thanks to Mitch Fink and Ron Paquet for recording additional voices for the show, and a special thanks to listeners like you. From the Mysteries After Midnight team, stay safe out there.